Welcome everyone to M365 UK, our February edition. So we've got over 40 attendees registered, but as it is a half-term holidays in UK, so we probably get a few folks joining us later on. But yeah, this event is being recorded, and it'll be available for access and the slides later on towards the weekend. So in the meantime, throughout the presentations, feel free to post your questions or opinions or thoughts in the chat window. Okay, so today we've got Nikki, Chapple and Anoop, Tatti with us, two great speakers, and especially Nikki recently doing lots of works in the community. So her sessions about pretty much managing the chaos that causes with the joiners and leavers, with ownerless groups, with M365 in particular, that services Teams, SharePoint, and so forth. So looking forward to that first session using Power Automate to try and resolve that problem area that we face. And then we got a second session with Anoop on around the Microsoft Viva connections, but specifically around the adaptive card extensions, which basically is going to be the magic of how to even get started, and then being able to retrieve the data, not just from SharePoint, but also from the external sources as well. And then he's going to share a couple of examples around the London Underground tube lines, as well as the tenant management data as well. So looking forward to both of the sessions with some demos. So interesting couple of hours we have. And as some of you may be existing and those who are new, this is roughly the agenda that we try to work, but it's very informal. So 4 to 6 it is here, and then we take 5-10 minute break around 5 p.m. So for those who are new to M365 UK, welcome to all of you. And for those who are already here, please bear with me. But my name is Chirag Patel. I'm the M365 UK organizer. techchirag.com is the best way to get to me, but I work with Patel Consulting as a Microsoft 365 consultant, architect, as well as a certified trainer, and essentially delivering collaboration, information management, and productivity solutions, albeit through Teams, SharePoint, and Power Platform. But I also have an MVP program badge, which basically just means, kind of I speak a lot around community events, organizing, and try and give feedback to various members at Microsoft around that. But, you can get to me on that, techchirag.com, but also work with British Computer Society as well. So try and work with competent, responsible people, but also guiding other folks in the IT industry to basically get the good for the IT that we have. So I'm on the assessor program there as well to assess the memberships. Okay, so in terms of M365 UK, it's been around for a year and a half now. We've got our next event happening next month on the 16th of March, same time, 4 p.m. here in UK. And we got two new speakers there for us, which is Gautam Seth and Pragati Jain. Two good sessions again, one on the Microsoft 365 pattern and practices PowerShell, everything about it, and then also being able to look at the power of the Power Query in Power BI from Pragati as well. So looking forward to that event. I'll post the links in the chat window so then you can register. If not, then meetup.com/M365 UK is the site to get all the details for that as well. And for those of you who would want to access the previous missed sessions or recordings, then M365 UK is the YouTube channel for it. So if you haven't already subscribed, then you can do so. And for those of you who would like to share your experiences or even just nuggets of your works or anything new, doesn't matter, as long as it's Microsoft 365 related, Teams, SharePoint, and be like Nikki, Chapple as well, who's also been an attendee here before, but also a Cloud Challenge winner for one of the prizes that we had event last year. So feel free to post your submissions, your proposals, and if you need any help, support, then I'll work with you on that as well. So it'll be good to hear from you on that. And M365 UK is the Twitter handle, as well as LinkedIn. So as ever, please feel free to ask questions or any thoughts around the sessions that you see today. I thought I'd mention this, give a special shout out to Collab Days team here in the UK, in particular Brett, Paul, and Tony, who are organizing and making this in-person event happen. So I'll be there next week, as well as Nikki. And so if you haven't already registered, it's free to attend. It's a day out at the Bletchley Park, the museum of the National Computing Museum. So great venue to be had, and hopefully you can see there, and then it'll be good to see you as well. As person to person there as well. So looking forward to that with all the sessions on Microsoft 365, Teams, and then SharePoint. Okay, so let's head on to our first session around using Power Automate to mitigate ownerless Microsoft 365 groups. And for those of you who don't know, Nikki has been around in IT for many years as a change manager and enterprise architect. So huge wealth of experience around, in particular, bridging the IT and business, and working on recently on the Microsoft the maturity model around the works on governance. So I'll probably let Nikki share you more info on that, but really looking forward to this one. And so welcome, Nikki, to M365 UK, and over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here today. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So as mentioned, I'm doing a session. It's going to be some PowerPoint slides, but there's also going to be some information and a demo as well to make it more interesting. But really, how to stop ownerless teams, and using just tools that we've got already within Microsoft 365, the Power Automate tools. I think it's very kind of underutilized in the kind of Microsoft stack. So just a little bit about me. So I'm Nikki Chapple. I'm based in the UK. I've been around the IT industry for more years than I can remember. I was doing a speech the other day. I'm one of these people who can remember punched cards, yes, at the age of 18, and paper tape. So when we see the computing next week down at Bletchley Park, some of those computers there, I will have worked on them many years ago. So I've recently joined Cloudway. I'm there 3 weeks now, so I'm a principal cloud architect, and I'm really focusing on the governance, risk and compliance elements of Microsoft 365 and balancing those risks between productivity and that sort of security, governance and compliance. I've got several qualifications in Microsoft 365, so I'm an enterprise administrator, plus I'm a qualified enterprise architect and a change manager as well. So it really is balancing those needs between IT and the business. There's a QR code at the top there. Feel free to scan it. That will take you to my blog post that has all of the details behind what we're going through today. So it has the breakdown of the Power Automate flow, and at the bottom it's got a link to my GitHub where you can actually download the flow and import it if you want. So what are we talking about? We're talking about ownerless teams. So what is an ownerless team? Well, an ownerless team is a team that doesn't have an owner anymore. It could still be active. There still could be members in there. People can be collaborating and working together, but there's no one to guide them and to provide any governance to that team. So some of the activities are going to be limited, and it's particularly around the whole membership management and guest management. So if it's a private team, then it's the owner who decides who's going to join the team. So if there's no owner, nobody else can join the team. And also with guests, it's only the owner that can manage the guests. So kind of my analogy, it's a bit, an ownerless team is a bit like a school classroom when the teacher has left. You know that chaos is going to happen. So what can we do about it? So really, ownerless teams are a problem because, as I say, there's no one responsible, you've got no governance, and therefore I think the big thing is you've got a risk of data overexposure. Guests may have access longer than they need. People might share information incorrectly. So the key thing to remember about this is it's not just a Teams issue. We talk a lot about Microsoft Teams, but actually Microsoft Teams membership is governed by Microsoft 365 groups. So Microsoft 365 groups manages all of the kind of the user permission and the access rights. But Microsoft groups also manage other collaboration tools. So your Office 365 groups, your Yammer communities, groups created through Planner or Power BI, etc. So when we're talking about this isn't just a Teams issue. We're talking about an issue that can span all of the different types of groups that are being created. So really, we need to roll back and change the name of this session. It's not just about stopping ownerless groups. So initially, I had done a Power Automate that was just focused on Teams, and then it was a case of, well, what about all of these other unified groups? We need a process that manages them all. So that's what I'm going to go through today and actually show you, looking at all the different types of groups. So what we called unified groups. So the Teams, the Yammer communities, Outlook groups, etc., as shown on the screen. So the strange thing is here is, why doesn't Microsoft have controls to stop the last owner being removed? Well, actually it does. So when you look at these screenshots here, if you're in an admin and you try and remove the last owner from the group, you're going to be blocked. It's also the same if you try and remove yourself as an owner from the team. It's going to say you can't make yourself a member, you can't leave the group because you're the only owner. You've got to transfer ownership. So from the back end, you think, well, Microsoft have got this sorted. They've got processes in place to stop it. And yes, whether you're looking from an end user, from the team as an owner, from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, the Teams Admin Center, or Azure AD, they've all got controls in there to actually stop that last owner being removed. So how do these ownerless groups occur? It happens when the user account is deleted or a user account is blocked. These are processes where group membership, when you delete a user account, there's a back-end process that's going to remove them all from the groups. And because it's a back-end process, there aren't any warning messages. So it just happens. You also kind of get a pseudo ownerless group effect when a user account is blocked. That person can't sign in. So technically, if you look at one of the administration portals, it looks like that group's got an owner. But if the user is blocked from signing in, they can't actually go in there and govern anything, and they can't add and remove people from those groups. So that is a concern as well. So how can I check whether my group and and the group ownership is going to be kind of left ownerless, I think, before I block somebody's account? So this is really the question for people from the service centre. They tend to be the people that are dealing with those, the joiners, movers, leavers process. You've got a person that wants to leave the organisation. Have I got time to go through and look and check? Well, you can't really do it from all the admin centres. You can see which groups people are a member of, but there's no direct way to actually see which groups they're an owner of without going through each individual group. And people could be in a lot of groups. You could use PowerShell or Graph API if you've got the relevant admin permissions, but you've got to be careful about using those tools. They are very powerful and they could do a lot of damage if things are managed incorrectly. So maybe not the right tools for kind of the service desk. So I thought, well, how can we do this? This is taking a lot of time. If you're having to go through and check, people don't have time, so they just tend to delete the account and just ignore the impact that's left behind. So I'm going to show you how we can use Power Automate with those same permissions that the people in the service centre have got. So I'm assuming that the person in the service centre has got the access rights to add and remove members from groups, because they would normally do it manually. Let's show a very quick process that can actually automate that for them. So what we're going to go through and demo today is show a process. I've based it on an instant trigger. So when a request comes in for somebody that is leaving, you can just put their email in. You can find what groups that person is an owner of. And for each group, I'm just going to add that user's manager as an owner. And they're going to send a communication to that manager to say, you have now been added as owner of those groups. Now that responsibility has now been passed to the manager to then go and, if necessary, reassign the membership of those groups to somebody else. So it's really important there that we've kind of managed that. I have got a little bit of error handling in there because in some scenarios you may not have a manager, and what do we do in those scenarios? So let's go and have a look at a demo. So let's just quickly kind of go through some of those processes there. So we've got an example of somebody called Alex. So let's look up Alex, and he's going to be leaving the organization. So when we look at a particular user here, it's not going to show me. Oh, always the best, isn't it, that something is totally frozen on me. Right, let's start again. Here we go. So we've gone into a user's account, so you can go in through different portals. I've just shown you the Azure AD one. You've got an option to see what groups they're in. So here's all the groups. Now that would take me a lot of time to go through each one of those to see if Alex is the owner or not, because you cannot see. So it doesn't matter whether you're going in through the Teams Admin Center or the Azure AD or Microsoft 365. When you're looking at the groups, you're just seeing a list of groups. So I know that Alex is in a team called London. So let's go into Manage Teams and let's find the team London and try and remove him, just to show you the process. We can see here it's got 6 members and 1 owner. And if we click on the team, we can see once we've drilled down into the team or the group, I can now see that Alex is the owner. If I want to remove him, you see there's no option for me to remove him because he's an owner. If I wanted to select somebody else, I can quite easily remove them from the team. So what I would need to do in this scenario is you have to promote somebody else as an owner, and then you can then change somebody back to a member. And then if you want, once they're a member, you can then remove them. So you've got that option there. Let's put him back for an owner for the time being. So you've got these blocks in each of the portals. It will be the same as well if you tried to remove yourself as an owner of the team, you would get blocked. So let's look at this scenario now where the request has gone through to somebody in the service desk and they say, you know, Alex is leaving, let's go and delete his account. So we go back. Very simple. We've decided whatever process it is, and we're going to delete. So very simple, delete, no warning, no messages popping up to say that he was a member of a group. So you're none the wiser and you would go on with your other processes. But let's go and actually have a look to see what's happened. So if I go and have a look at the groups. Now, I know he was the owner of a group called London. So when I look in here, you see, it will probably say, typical, this one's now got I made somebody else an owner, didn't I? So let's get rid of Delia as well. Sorry about this, it's going really slow. Always the way when you're doing a demo. So let's go back and quickly look at those groups. So look at London. So we can see now there's no owners in there. So if we were to look in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center as well, if I refresh the content, search. At least in the Teams Admin Center, it does have a warning flag up there to say there's no owner, but there's no way for me to report on this. So, you know, with all my teams and everything that I've got here, this is a demo tenant, so I haven't got very many to scroll through. But in reality, people have got hundreds or thousands of teams. They're not going to be able to go through and say, oh, look, this one here is ownerless. There's no way to export any of this reports out. So you really are down to kind of that PowerShell, Power Automate process. So let's go and have a look at a scenario now where we're going to build a flow where we've got another user. There's a lady called Christine. She wants to leave the organization, and she's a member and owner of a number of teams. So let's go and have a quick look at her just to show you. She's a member of lots of teams and groups. So we can see there's a lot of groups and teams there. It would take too much time to investigate each one of those one by one to see if she's an owner. So rather than go and delete her straight away, I've built a Power Automate that will actually manage the membership and add their manager as an owner. So just quickly looking back at Christine, we can actually see that the owner, I've set myself here as an owner, so you will actually see in the process that I will get the communications. So let's go and have a look at the flow. So I've built the flow already, and I'm going to walk through how the process works and then show you at the end. So we've got a manually triggered flow. Process is simple. You're just going to enter in the email address of the person that's leaving. Now, you could redesign this and have as kind of a more automated front end, but this is the simple process where somebody comes along and says, reassign group ownership for this person. We're initializing some variables. We need an array to store the list of groups that this person is an owner of. There is no direct way of getting that. So we're going to have to look at their membership and then identify in each of the groups they're a member of, are they an owner? So we create an array to hold that. And I'm just creating an array of account as well. How many groups is this person an owner of? So what we'll do is we'll pull back the user details for the person that we've entered up there. We've got all of their profile information that we need later on. Now, the smart thing is what we're using here now is feature in preview. It's about an HTTP request. There is no standard functionality in the Office 365 groups action to go and get membership for a specific user. You can get your group membership, so you can say, find my membership. So what we're going to do here, if we're being a little bit clever, HTTP requests allow us to run Graph API commands for the group. Not every single command under groups will work, but a lot of them will. So basically, I'm using Graph to say, for this particular user, and we're putting in the ID that we've captured from their email address, is a member of groups. And I'm filtering the groups to say, bring me back unified groups, because the groups command within Graph will also bring me back other types of groups like security groups. I'm only interested in unified groups. So we've got a filter there, and that's what that's doing. So it's going to pull that back. Now that comes back in a JSON format. So I need to parse that. And that's what I do in the next step here is I'm going to parse that information that's coming back. So here's the format of it. Now, the best way to get the format and the schema for this is to actually run the flow. So if I just quickly show you one that I'd created before. So when you run your flow, when you run the Graph API, you get this output here. This is what you need to copy out to create the schema. So this is an example of one that's come out, but that's what you need. So when you actually go in and edit your flow, you need to enter that in under generate a sample, because that's the structure, and then it will work it out. And for each of these items and arrays and objects in the schema, it's going to create you dynamic content that you can use further on in your flow. So we've got now a big list of one, or it could be 0, 1 or more groups that the person is a member of. Now we've got to go through and look at each one of those groups to see if the person is an owner. As I said, there's no direct way of getting there. So we'll do an apply for each. So what that will do, that's going to scroll through those groups, and we're going to find out, is that person an owner? Again, we're using another HTTP request. This time it's going and it's saying for groups, for this specific individual, are they an owner? So it's going to pull back. Well, it's actually, sorry, the group, that's the group ID that's coming from here. So for each group that we're going to look at, bring me a list of all the owners for this particular group. So again, we need to parse that output. So again, we do the same process as we did before. When you get to this particular stage here, run the flow, get the output, then you can paste it in under generate the sample to get the format. So we've got now a list of kind of one or more owners of the group, and we now need to filter, because I'm only interested if the user that you entered at the beginning is an owner of the group. So what we're doing is we're going to filter and basically taking the value from this step here, the owners of the group, and filter it to say the user principal name is equal to the user principal name that you entered at the beginning. So if there is a match, what we're going to say is append that information to an array. If there isn't a match, you don't. So what we're doing is each time we're looping around, checking each group. Is this person an owner? Yes, if they're an owner, append it to that array. So we're building up this list of groups that the person is an owner of. And what I'm doing is I'm just pasting in two variables here. I just want to capture display name and the ID of the group that I'm going to be using later on. We need the ID for the processing later on, and it's useful to have the display name when you're sending out communications to the users rather than an ID of a team or group. So that's going to go round for all of the different groups that the user is a member of. Then what it's going to do is when it's going to come out is I'm going to create an HTML table, a nice list of the groups. So it's going to store the display name and the ID information in a tabular form. So it makes it nice and easy to populate when we send communications. And I've just created columns automatically. We've only got 2 columns in this array anyway. We've only got display name and ID. That's what I want to push out. There's not as if there's other attributes there I don't want to view. So we just keep it automatic. Then it's nice to actually have how many teams or groups this user was an owner of. So all I've done is a very simple count, and it's doing a count of this array. So if we have a look at the value here, and it's an expression, and what that expression says is length of the array variable, how many rows, basically. Nice and simple in there. So what I've now got is I've got an HTML table of all of the groups that the user is an owner of. I've also got a count of the number of groups the user is an owner of. So then we can get on and do some processing. Now we might be in a situation where the person isn't an owner of any groups. In that situation, what we're doing here is we're saying, look at this count here, how many rows were appearing in that array are. So if it's greater than 0, we know they're an owner of the group. If it's 0, they're not an owner. In that case, what we want to do, if we do the no first, I'm just posting a message back to the person who's running the flow, just to say that the user, with the user principal name, that's the email address that they entered, is not an owner of any groups. No further action is required. So basically, the person in the service desk enters the email, presses the button. Within less than a minute, they will get an email back to say no, the further action is required. And if that is the last step of the process, they can go around then and delete the account. End of process. However, this person might be an owner of a group. So let's make this a little bit smaller so you can see everything on the screen. So what we've got here is the next step is we're going to add their manager as the owner of the group. So there's an add manager option here. It says get manager. And what it's doing, it's going to look up the user's UPN, and it's taking that Azure AD attribute of manager, and it's going to pull that back. Now, there are scenarios where in the best managed process, the manager could be blank. Now, if the manager is blank, then this process will fail without error handling. So what I've done here is I've added a step in for error handling. And what you have to do here is the error handling. What I'm doing is I'm sending a message back to the person who's running a flow to say that the flow has ended, no manager, and to say that the person is owner of so many groups. With the list of the groups, this is the HTML table that we're publishing here. The ownership of these groups cannot be reassigned. So in that scenario, you would have to have some form of backup process, because there's no direct manager. It's either go and populate the manager field and rerun it, or have some other alternative process to try and reassign the group ownership. So how do we get this step to run when it fails? So if we can see here we've got this little dotted red line. So how the process works, normally each action as it goes down is when the previous step is successful, go on to the next step. You can have options to get actions to work in other scenarios. So what you do is this action here, run after. So we don't put the controls on the step that fails, we put controls on the step after. So if I say run after, normally the default is successful. So you have to untick that and tick failed. So that will then create your red dotted line. And so this option here only ever works if the say the flow has failed, and it's failed because there aren't any managers of the group to assign it to. Now we have a parallel option here. So we can, when we add another step, we can add it in to run in parallel here. So normally we add an action, and I can't remember now how we do it after. Anyway, I've got it in parallel. Yeah, so add an action, add a parallel branch. So that's what I would have done here to get the alternative one. So now we've got a process now where we've got a user that's leaving. We know that they're owner of one or more groups, and we know that they have a manager. So now we've got all of the information we need to be able to add that manager as owner of the groups. So we're going to go through that array one by one. So that array held the description of the display name of the group, and it also held the ID. So the ID is the value that we need. So it's going to go through one or more iterations. It takes the group ID because that's what we need, rather than the display name. We need that ID. And we take that by saying item, question mark, and then ID in brackets. That just brings back that one part of that array. And then we're going to run some more actions. So there is a standard action in the Office 365 groups that does allow you to add a member to a group. So what we're saying is take the output from this previous step, which is your group ID. So it says group ID equals from this output, and we're going to add as a member of the group. So we're going to add them as a member first, and then we're going to promote them as an owner. So it's a two-step process. So this is a standard action, no fancy Graph API required. So we take the group ID, we take the information of the manager, the UPN, and we add them to as a member. Step 2, we now need to promote them to be a group owner. Now, there isn't a standard action, so we're going back to using the Graph API. So what this one is saying is looking at groups, and it's taking the output of get group. So each group here, get group, and talking about owner. So it's not actually a get this time, we're doing a post. So a post is an update, a get is a read, a post is an update. So we're going to update group with this particular group ID, and we want to update the owners. And then we paste in here the object, and that object is the ID of the manager. That will then promote them, make them from a member to a owner. So that will go through 1 to n times, depending on how many groups were in that array we created. Once that process is finished, we're going to send some communications. So I've got 2 sets of communications going. The first one is just going back to the user that is running that flow, just to notify them what's happening. So it says that the manager has been added to the groups, and it says which the name of the manager has been added to however many groups that may be, 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. And the list of the groups is below. So that's the HTML table that we had with the display name and in there. Then we want to post some information to the manager. So the manager will get a lot of notifications. You get the standard notifications, when you've been added as a member of or group or an owner of a team. But we want to know, I suppose, let them know why we've done that. So I've just put some standard text in here. You can, customize it however you want. But I'm saying we're going to post it as a flowbot. You've got an option here. You can send it from the user, so the person who's running the flow. It's up to you which option, not much difference between it. You can post it into a chat. So because this is going to an individual, to the manager, you post it to a chat rather than in a team channel. And I've just created a communication here. So levers process, important reassignment of some group ownership. I've stated what the current process is. I've then stated that a particular user, so this user principal name, is leaving the organization. They are an owner of, and you put the count in of 3 teams, groups, and the list of groups is shown below. And then as their manager, you've been automatically added as an owner. And as owner, it's kind of your responsibility now to reassign group ownership to other people if required. It may be that the manager is the right person to be the owner of the team, but at least, you've put the onus on somebody else. The manager can't remove themselves as an owner because that's going to get blocked. They'll have to reassign somebody else as an owner if they don't want to be an owner themselves. So that's the process. So let's have a look. Let's go through and actually run this. So we're going to look at the person call. Steve said the email address, nice and easy, no problems in getting the email address wrong because it's a type of email. It's going to look up things, so it's not like you can mistype. So we've got this person here. That's all the person needs to do. Only caveat is they need to have the permissions to read and write users and groups. So if this is a service desk action, most service desk people would have those access permissions anyway. So we're going to run it. So the flow is starting now. So let's open it up and have a quick look. So we trigger the flow. Here's the email address that we've entered. We've just initialized those variables. There's nothing in there. So we've got a type of array, an account. They've just been set up. We haven't processed them yet. Get user, that pulls out all of the attributes and everything about all of the user here. So we've got a lot of information here about that particular user. Then we run that graph command that's saying for that particular user. And here we are. For this user, we need their ID, so EA374. If we look in here for the graph, for these users, EA374, get members of groups, filtered unified groups. And then you can see here, here's the JSON that's come out. can be a little bit complicated, you know, if you're not used to looking through, but basically it's going to show me an array of the groups that they're a member of. So we've got a number of different groups here and all of that information. So there may be nothing there. If it's empty, then they're not a member of a group. There's a lot of information that's come back there. So what we do is we parse that information so we can actually use that later on. And then it's going through the group. So here, what we can see here is this person, Christy, was obviously a member of 23 different unified groups because it's going through one group at a time. So we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. as we're going through. So let's have a look at one of these. So we're pulling it back to say for this particular group, here's the group ID, and it's saying, give me a list of the owners, so get. So that's given me a list of all of the different owners of this group. We parse that response back, and then we're going to create an array by reading through that information and filter it if the user is an owner. So that user Christy is not an owner of this group because it's blank, the output is blank. So if I make this a little bit smaller and find one quickly that, so if we scroll through, we'll keep looking at all of these. Yeah, so this step here, apply to each, will only add the user to the array if the user appears. So all of these ones that are grayed out means that when you filter the array, there's nothing there. So the next step is bypass. So we quickly flick through. We will come and find one at some point. Oh, is that one? Here we go. So for this one here, you can see now the apply for each step has kicked in. That's because when we've filtered the array to say, is Christy an owner of that group, it will probably have come back. No, that one's not done anything. Well, hopefully it's appeared later on. So, because there's 23, it's difficult to look through and find which one it is. So what's happened here, it's gone through and it's created an array of any of those groups where Christy was an owner of. And now I'm creating an HTML table, taking the display name and the ID. So when we look at it, so here are the groups that Christy is an owner of. So out of those 23 groups that we went through up here, we've found out that actually an owner of 4 of those. And so if we look at the variable, when we do a count, it's adding up how many rows. There's 4. So we've got a table now and we've got a count. So we can now go on process. Is the user a group owner? Well, the condition is true because it's greater than 0. So we're down this route here now. Get the manager. So we've looked up Christy, see who the manager is. Here's the manager's details here. And there's the email address. So we're bypassing this error handling because there is a manager. So we're going down the add manager route. So what's happening here is it's going to go through each of those 4 groups where where Christy was an owner, and it's going to add the manager as a member. Now, you may see these exclamation marks appear. That's because this user, the manager, is already a member of that group. So you can get these warning because you can't add somebody if they're already there. So for this example here, you've got green ticks here. So if somebody's already a member, then you can't add them again. So here's the group ID. There is the person we are adding as member. So that's the manager. And then we do the same then with the ownership. So we're saying for this particular group, we want to add the manager. That will say somewhere along here, there's the manager's ID there. We're going to add it to there. So that will go through each of those 4 groups. Then it's going to send a summary back to the person who's run the flow with the summary, and it's also going to send an output to the manager. Because I happen to be the person that's running the flow and I'm also the manager, we can have a look at some of those communications. So what we've got here, so this would be the communication that would go back to the person who's running the flow. Leave as process, add manager of owner of groups, flow complete, the manager, and this is the manager has been added a flow to 4 groups, and here's the list of the groups below. You might not want the ID, etc. on there, but I'm just showing you, you know, the type of information you can have. And then we've got a second communication there, actually back to back, because obviously I'm the person that's running the flow and I'm also the manager in this scenario. For simplicity, you would get a different this communication would go to the manager to say Christy is leaving and they're owner of 4 groups and the list of groups below. And as your manager, it's up to you to now reassign the membership of the groups. So it's quite a quick process to kind of put together. You saw how quick it runs. You know, it's really fast. You know, Power Automate is really good at these very repetitive type processes that you can do. You know, what it's going to make sure is you don't get into that scenario where you've got those ownerless teams, because you're making sure for every person you're removing, you're adding somebody back on as well. So let's skip back to the presentation. So you can customize your flow. I've just shown you the kind of the basics of how to do it. So you might have some other process that is triggering, you know, your levers process. You might be able to do that. It might be you want someone to complete a form, or it might be something on a SharePoint list, etc. I've just done an instant flow, but you could have a different trigger. You may want an approval step. So you might not want the manager to always be the owner. So you might want an approval step that goes to the manager to say, hey, this person's leaving. Here's the groups that they're in. Who do you want to reassign ownership to? So you could have something like that in. And then you can also have an update. So, for example, if it's being managed via a SharePoint list, you might want kind of an audit log of this. It might be a process that populates a SharePoint list with the lever. You might want to then post back when it's finished the number of groups that they were an owner of, what groups have been reassigned and who it was reassigned to. So you could also add that in to your process at the end. But the really important thing is now that nominated user, the owner or whoever else is nominated, is now responsible for that team. So you've completely stopped that ownerless groups situation. So really the key takeaways here are, if you've got no owner of a group or a team, you've got no management, you've got no governance, therefore you've got a risk of data overexposure. The scope. We talk a lot about Microsoft Teams, but Microsoft Teams is managed by Microsoft 365 groups. Groups are created by other services in Microsoft 365. So make sure you expand the scope to all of the Microsoft 365 groups, those unified groups. Triggers, I've showed you a nice simple one, an instant trigger. You could have it automated, and you could capture a nominated user rather than automatically assigning the manager. So therefore your new owner could be a manager. You could be asking the manager to nominate, or it could be like a form as part of your levers process. It might be a Microsoft form or some other service where you say when somebody's leave, there could be a question there to say, who do you want to reassign the groups to? So right at the beginning of the process, you've got a nominated user to add. You can customize it, say, to have some form of approval process. You could do some more work around managing exceptions. So, I've just got a message coming back to say this person's not got a manager. Well, you probably want to kind of have something more robust around there. Well, what does that person do? You don't want them to go and just delete the user because you've left with ownerless team. You would need some alternative process. As I say, we can also update statuses and create lists and things like that. So you've got a log or an output of what activities have been happening and why. So I'll open it up really to the floor now for any questions. So here's the QR code that will go direct to the blog post. Gives you all the information, the step-by-step guides, and right down at the bottom is a link to my GitHub. So if you want, you can actually download the zip file. You go into Flows and you can just import that and try it out for yourself, nice and easy. So yeah, any questions?
Hey, good one, Nikki. That was a great session. I really enjoyed that and the demo. I guess it's one of many solutions, right? To try to manage that, but it's very neat, structured, and it was a good walkthrough. Like you went through the flow, and I think it's absolutely. I think it's one way to save the cost, I guess.
And it's the simplicity of it. Once it's there, and it's just showing that the power really of Power Automate. There's probably lots of other processes around that service desk that are quite repetitive. The joiners, movers, leavers process, unless you've got a really small organization, is going to be repetitive. You've got a lot of that, and Power Automate, and particularly now you've got those HTTP actions in preview, allows you to extend it out that little bit further and do other activities as well.
No, it's good. And I think I'll probably just give a couple of minutes as well, just to see. And I think it will be interesting to see what the other thoughts there are. And I think I can see a hand from.
Yeah, we've got a hand up.
Andrew Payne. So go for it.
Yeah, hi Nikki.
Hi.
I'm not sure if you said this at the beginning, but are all the connectors involved standard connectors? So a per user or per app license?
As far as I'm aware, everything is standard. So let me just quickly, if I go to
it's a great question, because I think a few years ago it got converted into a premium connector, didn't it?
The standard HTTP ones are. So I've just realized I'm not sharing my screen, so let me just go back. So I'm sharing my screen. I've just set up a manually triggered one. So let's go and search here. So we want to look under Office 365 groups, ones with lots of little spots on them. So when we click on here, here's all of the actions. Now, anything premium is always shown as premium. So here we go, send an HTTP request. It is in preview. So, Microsoft might decide to change their mind later on. But at the moment, that's standard. Whereas if I went in and the normal way to do it is to do your HTTP or with Swagger, etc., or the webhook, they are marked as premium. So I am assuming, because they've not got the premium flag against them, it's available for everyone. But because it is still in that preview state, I suppose Microsoft may change it. But you've got a similar one also for SharePoint as well. So if you actually, my screen's just stopped. So if I look under HTTP again, there's an HTTP request sent to SharePoint. So I've done some other things where I'm actually doing some more complex actions around SharePoint site management as well.
That's good. Yeah, it's great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
No problem.
You're right. I think because it's in preview, so it's always subject to change with these things. But I think, I guess, given few years, a few months, I think it was sometime last year or something, there was a lot of noise in the community about it anyways. The fact that, Microsoft put the price on that, but fingers crossed, wait and see what that's going to look like. Good. So any other questions from anyone? And it doesn't have to be a question, just, for your views. I think I would be interested to know from the attendees is how you manage in your organizations, the ownerless groups. Do you use kind of a proprietary solutions, or have you done something different? Or have you used Nikki's GitHub code for those of you who's just gone there quick to download it.
Yeah. Or what I tend to find with some organisations, people are totally unaware that this scenario actually happens. You know, because it's kind of, you've just got this levers process. There's no warnings. There's no messages. You know, it's all part of this team sprawl. They're just there. And the team doesn't stop working. That's the thing, is that you're not really aware until you're going to get calls into the service desk to say, oh, I tried to join this team, but I can't because it's a private team and the manager can't let me in. So, yeah, it'd be good to know, definitely how other people manage this.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Andrew's going to be using the solution, so that's good.
Yeah.
And I think, in some, depending on how the governance is deployed, I know some organizations I work with, they literally leave it to the users and their responsibilities. Even if it's ownerless group, it's down to, to that particular team. But like you say here, you've made a good point that at least you're escalating that to the manager of the individual, and then at least the action is on them. So, all good. Okay, so I've put a link in the chat window for everyone. So yeah, please feel free to, there's only a couple of questions in terms of the feedback. So it'll really help out at least Nikki in terms of at least improve or take your thoughts or ideas on that. But yeah, please fill out. That's really helpful for me as well as Nikki, and then try and do better. So good. So yeah, what we'll do, we'll take a break, and like usual, we kind of take around sort of 10 minutes. And so, from that point of view, we can just kind of, the links are there, of course, in the break time, if you want to sort of fill out the form to submit your session ideas, then, I'll be welcoming you on that. But yeah, just want to say a big thanks to Nikki for giving up the time and really just to demo us. And she is, as she mentioned, or some of you might be following, she's doing 4 sessions in 4 days. So really appreciate that, Nikki, for giving up your time to be here today. Right. Welcome back, everyone, back to M365 UK. Hope you enjoyed the first session with Nikki Chapple with regards to managing ownerless groups around Teams, Microsoft 365 in general through Power Automate. So that was a good session, and as I mentioned earlier, the recording will be available for that around Friday, Saturday. But for those of you who are new to M365 or who's just joined in for Anoop's session, just a quick intro. M365 UK has been around for 1.5 years now, and we run this on a monthly basis around about middle of the month. So those links are there, and also you'll find them in the chat window. So meetup.com/M365 UK is where all the information will be provided, including the links to slides and the videos as well. So hopefully you can stay for Anoop's session here now. So Anoop's going to take us through the general adaptive card extensions functionality, the display of those beautiful looking cards throughout all the experiences we see within the apps and services of M365. But obviously around the Viva connection side of things. So Anoop's an MVP working with Content Cloud, and does a lot of wonders and good stuff in the community. So he's been here before with M365 UK, and so gives me a good pleasure to welcome him back again. And Anoop's been around for many years now as a SharePoint developer, and pretty much takes on anything he gets his hands on to turn some good solutions. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Anoop, and looking forward to your session, Anoop. Take it away.
All right, thanks a lot, Chirag. Let me start by sharing my screen. Yeah, can you just confirm if you're seeing my screen?
Yeah, all good.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, which is Microsoft Viva Connections Adaptive Card Extensions. In short, they are called as ACEs. Right. So let's go to the boring slide first. My name is Anoop Tatti. I'm a SharePoint developer at Content Cloud based in UK. I'm a Microsoft MVP, like Chirag mentioned, and that's my blog site, anoopt.medium.com. I write blogs related to SharePoint and a bit of Power Platform and Azure. I'm on Twitter under the handle Anoop Tells, and my GitHub username is AnoopT, where I share all the code repositories. Right. So today's session. I've divided the session into 4 parts. So firstly, we'll start with the introduction. We'll just look at what Microsoft Viva is and what are the different elements within Microsoft Viva. And then we'll jump on to Viva Connections. We look at the different parts of Viva Connections, which is the dashboard, which are the dashboard, feed, and resources. And then we'll go into a demo in which we'll see how we can edit a dashboard or edit the dashboard in your tenant and add some cards to it, which are nothing but the the other adaptive cards that we'll see later. And finally, we'll conclude with some summary and resources. Right. So Microsoft Viva, what is Microsoft Viva? Microsoft Viva is an employee experience platform that brings together communications, knowledge, learning resources, and insights in the flow of work. It's powered by Microsoft 365 and experienced through Microsoft Teams. It fosters a culture that empowers people and teams to be their best from anywhere. So Viva has been around for some time now, and you might have seen updates related to that in your tenant. And yeah, this is the definition that I've taken from the Microsoft's website itself. Now, there are different elements in Microsoft Viva. It's called as the Viva portfolio. So we have 4 elements in it. The first one's Viva Learning. We've got Viva Topics, Viva Insights, and Viva Connections. What I'll do is I'll quickly read a few lines about these before we jump into Viva Connections, which is the main focus of this presentation. So Viva Learning, it brings expertise into the flow of work by connecting systems, various systems from your organization, be it learning management systems or third-party providers, and systems provided by Microsoft itself. Viva Topics, it applies AI automatically to the content within your organization across your systems and teams, and it organizes the content into related topics such as projects, products, customers, etc. And with the help of that, you can look at certain information related to certain topics. So Viva Topics automatically divides the content into various topics. Viva Insights. Viva Insights helps improve productivity and well-being through data-driven, privacy-protected insights and recommendations. And finally, Viva Connections is a curated company-branded experience that brings together relevant news, conversations, and resources in the applications and the devices that we use every day. So these are the different elements within the Microsoft Viva offering, and our main focus today is on Viva Connections. So let's take a look at now that we have taken a look at these different elements, let's dive into Viva Connections and see what it involves. So in order to set up Viva Connections in your tenant, there are certain elements that are needed. Now, towards the end of the presentation, I have provided a link which explains how to set up Viva Connections within your tenant. But in brief, what is needed is an internet, which has to be in SharePoint Online, and then something called as a home site. So within SharePoint, we'll have many sites, but as a SharePoint administrator, or the administrator of the SharePoint within your tenant can go ahead to the portal and then set one of the site as the home site. So that becomes the home site of your tenant. And then once that home site is set up, there'll be certain editors who will have permissions to edit the home site. They can go ahead and edit the global navigation, which is needed for Viva Connections. The home site editors can go ahead and create something called as a dashboard, which we'll take a look in a minute. So the home site editors go to the home site and then create this dashboard. And the final thing that is involved is Teams admin setup. So this involves installing the Viva Connections app within your tenant. Now, like I said, towards the end of presentation, I'll post a link which will explain the details of what all is involved within the setup. So for now, let's assume that Viva Connections has been set up within the tenant, and then it's time to play ahead. Time to go ahead and play with Viva Connections. Before we do that, we need to understand what Viva Connections involves. Like I mentioned earlier, Viva Connections is made up of three things. First one is the dashboard, second one is the feed, and third one is resources. Now, I'm just referring my notes here. So dashboard, as you can see on the left side, sorry, just give me a minute. As you can see on the left side over here, these are it contains information that can be bought up from various systems. So it provides fast and easy access to information and job related to tasks. The content on the dashboard can be targeted to specific users, specific roles, markets, or job functions, and it can bring information from from external sources and third-party apps, etc. So it is like a quick way to access information within your tenant, and that's what dashboard provides us. And now, secondly, the feed. So we will have a look at, although I'm just showing a screenshot of this over here, we will take a look at these in detail within my dev tenant soon. But yeah, the second element within Viva Connections is the feed. Now, the feed, it provides content which is personalized within your organization. So this can involve news and information that is helpful for the users. The content that is displayed in the feed comes from three primary sources. First one is the organizational news that is published in SharePoint. The content can the second source is content from posts from the Yammer communities, and the third one is the videos in stream. So the content from all these three come together and then can be seen in the feed, which is personalized to users. And finally, we have the resources. The resources are nothing but they are a combination of different elements from the SharePoint app bar, which we'll have a look in a minute. The SharePoint app bar, it shows personalized sites, personalized news, files, and lists. So that's what is involved in the SharePoint app bar. And SharePoint app bar becomes part of the resources of the Viva Connections. And the other element in the resources is the global navigation, which will be set up in the home page. So just to summarize again, Viva Connections is made up of three elements. First one is the dashboard, second one is the feed, and third one is the resources. And what we'll do now is we'll just have a look at how these elements look in desktop versus a mobile. So the screenshot that you are seeing here is on the right side we've got the desktop view, and on the left side we've got the mobile view. That's obvious, right? So on the right side in the desktop view, it's the Viva Connections app that is opened within Teams, and this is how it looks. So what would have happened is, like I said earlier, the home site editor would have gone to SharePoint, gone to the home site, edited the landing page, and added certain elements in it, created a dashboard, etc., and they would have published it. And us as users, when we go into the Viva Connections app within Microsoft Teams, we will see the landing page of that home site. Now, what is involved in that? So firstly, the first element is the dashboard. So like I said, the home site editors would have gone ahead and created a dashboard and added various elements within that dashboard, and they would have added the dashboard web part onto the home page, and that's what is seen over here. And then the second one is the feed web part. So again, the company, the home site editors would have gone ahead and added the feed web part onto the onto the home site, and that's what appears over here. And the various elements that we see in the feed, these are all personalized based on who has opened the app. And then the final bit is the resources. So when we click on this button, which I'll show in a minute, we will see the resources coming up. So the resources, like I said earlier, is a combination of the SharePoint app bar and the global navigation. So what I'll do quickly is I'll just go to my tenant, my dev tenant, and show you the Viva Connections app that has been installed in my tenant. So this is my dev tenant. I've gone into Microsoft Teams and I have clicked on the Viva Connections app, and this is the home page that I see. At the moment, it's it's very empty. I haven't added much here, but later on we'll add the dashboard and I'll show it to you how that looks. But just to come back on the resources. So when we click on this, you can see over here, this is the SharePoint app bar, so which contains the navigation, the personalized sites, and personalized news. So this is the third element of Viva Connections. Now, if I go back to the slides again, so we saw how Viva Connections look in the desktop view. Now the next one is, sorry about that, right. I'll be monitoring the chat and I'll be answering the questions towards the end of the presentation. Sorry. Right. The next one is Viva Connections experience in mobile. So as you can see on the left side over here, we've got the mobile view. So here we won't be able to see the home site in the mobile view. It automatically converts, when we open the Viva Connections app in mobile, we'll see the three tabs or the three elements of Viva Connections. First is the dashboard, second one is the feed, and third one is resources. So the dashboard, it is the same dashboard that is seen everywhere. So take, for example, this tile or this card that we have over here. As you can see, even in the desktop, we have the same card. So the homepage editors would have authored the dashboard and would have said, okay, I want the health check card to appear at the top of the dashboard in this particular position. And that's what appears in the dashboard on desktop and on mobile. Yeah. So that's the dashboard. And next one is the feed. So when we click on feed, it shows all the various elements. So basically, news or Yammer posts or stream videos, they show up in the mobile. And finally, the resources. In the mobile experience, the resources is slightly different. It won't show the SharePoint app bar, but it just shows the global navigation. So now what I've done is I have installed Viva Connections on in my tenant, and I'll just open the emulator and show to you how it looks in mobile. So as you can see, we've got the dashboard. At the moment, it is empty. I'll be adding some elements later. The feed is empty as well. And then finally, we've got the resources, which, as you can see, is nothing but the navigation of the home site. Right. So that's the difference between a desktop experience and the mobile experience. So the core elements, that is the dashboard, the feed, and the resources are available in both the places. But in the desktop experience, what we see is the home site itself. Right. Now, what we'll do is we'll have a look at the demo. So firstly, we'll start with the SharePoint site. So what I'll do is I'll go to my tenant, open SharePoint, and then go to the home site, and then we will see how the app looks within the Teams desktop, which we have seen already, and then we'll have a look at the Teams mobile experience, and then finally we look at the dashboard, and then go ahead and add cards. So we will be focusing more on the dashboard in this presentation because that's where we can do a lot of customization. Right. So now, like I said, I'll go to the to my tenant, and this is the home site. So as you can see over here, this is the SharePoint site which I've set up as my home site. Now, just to quickly show you how I did that. So as a as a SharePoint admin of the tenant, I went into the admin center and then clicked on settings, and then there is a setting over here called as home site. When I click on that, if there was no home site available, then it would have given me an option to select one of the sites as the home site, and I went ahead and selected that site, and that site becomes the home site for my tenant. So now that the home site is set up, what we'll do is, it's just a normal SharePoint site, and then it has got you can edit the look and feel of the home site as per as per your requirements. One of the things that is present in the home site is called a dashboard. So if I go ahead and click on the settings cog, because this is the home site, what Viva Connections does is it automatically gives us this option called as setup Viva Connections. Whereas if it is not a home site, then we will not see this option. So we go ahead and click on setup Viva sites, and then the main element in the Viva Connections is the dashboard. So I click on that, and it takes me to this page, which is the dashboard page. Now, at the moment, it is empty. That's why we do not see anything in the dashboard. Now, in order to edit the dashboard, just like editing any other SharePoint page, we click on edit, and then it gives us this dashboard edit view. And this is where we can go ahead and add different cards. Now, these cards, can be very simple cards, slightly complicated, and the other types will be not complicated actually. These are like simple cards, or what is it? Slightly customizable, and the third one is heavily customizable. That's what I wanted to say instead of complicated. So. And then the idea behind this is we add certain cards over here with which we can access different systems within our tenant. So be it a third-party system, or maybe something within SharePoint, something like that. So what we'll now do is we'll just go ahead and see the different types of cards that we can add. So firstly, we'll just add a simple card. So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and click on add a card, and then I'll pick this simple card, which is web link. And then we can edit the properties of this. I'll just make that as a large card. And then I'll put a link over here. So if I just copy one of the links that I've got, which is that one, and then it automatically picks the title and the image for us. And this is this is a simple link card. So when you click on it, it takes you to that link. So as the homepage editor, if I am happy with the dashboard, then I go ahead and republish it. And then what I do is now, if I go to the homepage, let me just remove this in first place. So as the homepage editor, I decide, okay, my dashboard should appear in this particular section of the homepage. So I click on that plus button, and then search for the dashboard web part, and then add that web part, and then republish it. So that's how my home site looks now. So that's the dashboard, which has this particular card. Now, if I open the Viva Connection app in Teams, and if I refresh that, then what should happen is we should see the dashboard over here. So as you can see, the card appears over here, and then that's the dashboard. Click on that, it takes us to the meetup site. And then finally, in the mobile, what I'll do is I'll just quickly close Teams and then reopen Teams. And once it loads, So I've now opened the Viva connection app in my Teams mobile, and as you can see, the card that we just added appears over here. Yeah. So that's the experience of adding a simple card in the dashboard. Now, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and add another type of card, which is slightly customizable. So for that, I click on Add, and then there's this card provided by Microsoft called as Card Designer. What I'll do is I'll just go ahead and edit it, and then change the size to large, and then I want it to be an image card. Now, this card, what it can do is it can show data that we set within the card. So it can be static data that can be pulled from somewhere and then pasted in the properties. So I'll just add some data into the card and then quickly explain to you how I did that. So let's give a nice title to the card. I'll call it as phrase. And then I'll choose an icon. So for example, thumbs up, that'll do. And then we'll give it a nice heading called as phrase. And then we'll add a nice image for that. So we can just do a quick search for phrase, select that image, and we'll set certain other properties as well. So firstly, there is something called as a card action. So this is basically, when you click on the card, what should happen? You can decide if it has to go to maybe a link or a system within your organization. You can set that link. For now, I'll just select show quick view. I'll explain to you what quick view is in a minute. And then we'll just have one button. And then give it a very nice title called click here. And then again, this one will say show the set it to show the quick view, and we don't want a secondary button. And then this is where we can add some JSON data in order to show within the card. So what I'll do is I'll just add some data for now and explain to you what it is and where I got that from. So I've already copied some of the text. So I'll just go ahead and paste that. And then if I select data, and paste that data as well. And then if I'm happy with it, I'll just go ahead and republish it. So what this card does is, when I click on this button or click on the card itself, it opens something called as quick view. And this is nothing but a view that can be customized by us. So as the author of the dashboard or the editor of the dashboard, there are certain elements that can be customized. So firstly, it is these cards. Now there is limited customization on these cards. So it can be an image card or a text card, or just a link, etc. And if we want to add more customizations, then it'll be this quick view where we can customize a lot of things. So what this is nothing but JSON data. So there is a repository on GitHub by Microsoft called as if I can just open that quickly. Sorry, just give me a minute. I should have opened it before we started the meeting. Yeah, so there are these various samples that are provided by Microsoft. Like a simple list, team calendar, etc. So these samples have certain there's a template and a data card, and all I've done is just copied this template and then pasted onto the dashboard over there. So once I did that, it showed me this data. So now imagine there might be a system within within your organization that might be giving you some JSON data. So you can take that data and then create a template from it, and then paste that template over here in the adaptive card, and then add some static data onto it, and then make that show over here. So in this card, it is showing an image and then some anniversaries that are coming up and some other links. But this is just a sample. But like I said, this can be customized to show your own data in your own template. Yeah. And then because I have published it, let's see how it looks in the desktop view. So if I just refresh the Viva connection app in Teams, I should see that dashboard card appear over here. Did I publish it? Sorry. Give it a minute and then try one more time. Yeah, there you go. So that's how it looks in the Teams desktop experience. And then in mobile, if I just close this app and open once again. The Viva Connections app within Teams, I should see the praise card, and when I click on this, the experience is slightly different. So as you can see, there's no space for the quick view to appear on the left side, and that's why it just appears in the entire screen, and then you can close that and go back to the dashboard. Right. So now if I go back to the dashboard page, we have seen two types of cards. One is a link card and the other one is a card designer, where we can go ahead and add our own JSON and template and then show the card. Now, the requirement might be, much different. You might want to have more customizable cards. So it might be something like it should pick the data dynamically from different sources and then show it over here. So if the requirement is that, then we jump into something called as extensibility. So basically we can extend these cards by adding more customization, and that is nothing but adaptive card extensions or ACEs. And we'll see a couple of ACEs in this demo, and then see how what is the way to develop those. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created an ACE. So if you've heard of SharePoint Framework before, it's that is used in order to create these custom ACEs. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and created a few custom ACEs, and I've deployed those in my tenant, and we will see how those ACEs look, and then we'll take a look at how we can create such custom ACEs. So the first one I've done here is called as TFL status. So as you can see, as soon as I add the card, it says it needs some setup. So this is all customized. So it says we need to add an extension name in the properties. So what I do is I just go ahead and copy the extension name. We quickly explain to you what it is, but it's just one of the custom properties that is needed for this adaptive card to function. So as soon as I've done that, I'll just republish it, and then what it does is it shows you, status of for TFL line. Now, when you click on View All Lines, it shows us all the lines. So currently there are some delays on district line and northern line, etc., and all the others are have good service. So basically, what this adaptive card extension is doing is it is calling the TFL API and then getting all the status values and then displaying them in a nice manner in the adaptive card extension. So this adaptive card extension has also got another functionality, which is you can favorite one of the lines. So let's say, for example, northern is my favorite. I click on that, and that becomes my favorite line, and that's what appears at the top. And if I close the quick view, I can see the status of northern line. So the idea is, let's say you are on on the Teams app and then open Viva connections, be it in mobile or desktop, and then you want to know what the status of the line is. So it just quickly gives you the status. So if I just go to Teams desktop again and then refresh the page to see how it looks, it's again within the dashboard. We've added the card, and yeah, it takes a minute for it to reflect. But yeah, there it is. We can see the card, and then it shows all the status of all the lines. And then finally, if I go to desktop, let me just try and refresh this to see if it automatically appears. If not, there you go. So it shows the card over here. Then I click on view all lines, and then it shows the status of all the lines. So yeah, so that was one of the custom cards. So as you can see, TFL provides us an API in order to get all the various tube lines and show their status. We have consumed that API and then shown it in the ACES. So that's customizing the ACES in one level. Now the other thing is, if you want, you can go crazy and then make an ACE heavily customizable, and that's what I have done here. So I've created a new ACE called as office locations. What I'll do is, again, I'll just go ahead and change the card size to large. And earlier, the TFL card had got just one property, but this one, as you can see, it has got several properties. So, depending upon the requirement and the level of customization needed, we can go crazy with the properties. For the ACES. So what I'll do is I'll quickly start filling these properties and then parallelly explain to you what these properties are. So this is nothing but an image card. So we need to show an image for the card. And then we'll pick the data source as taxonomy. So basically what this card does is it shows all the offices that are present within within our company. So I know that someone has gone ahead and created the names of the offices within the term store. So that's why I picked the source as taxonomy, and then I just need to add an ID of where those offices term is, and then what I do is I just say yes to search box, yes to maps, then map source is ping, and then use an API. I'll just provide a dummy key for now. And then actually, sorry, I just set that to no. And then show time, show weather, get the weather from the list, select, get the weather from the list. No. So set that to yes, and then yeah. So these are all the different properties, but as you can imagine, this is a custom ACE, so there would be a user guide explaining how to use this and what these different properties are. And then when I go ahead and publish this, you see it says we've got two offices within our company, and click on that. So it shows you, the offices. The first one is the London office. It shows you where the the location using Bing Maps, and then the address, and then the weather at the moment is static because I did not input the API key. But if I put the API key, then it gets the weather from an API and then shows the actual weather. And then you can click on get directions and it opens Bing Maps, and then you can go ahead and add a direction, and then the other office is in Manchester, and then it's the same experience. So this is a card which has been heavily customized, and you can see all the different properties over here. Now, if I just close this and then see how it looks in the Teams desktop or Viva Connections desktop app within Teams. I'll just give it a minute to load.
That's Microsoft Teams, isn't it? At Microsoft's terms.
Oh, right. Let me just try and present again. Don't know what's going on. Thought I lost connection there for a minute.
I think there were Teams issues this morning. I think I saw.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, but you get the idea. So it should. If I just refresh this page, and it'll look like that in the desktop experience, and then in mobile. If I just try and refresh this, it shows the office locations, and yeah, maybe I just need to close this and open again. Yeah, there you go. Shows the offices, and then yeah, okay, we need to wait. Click on view details, and then yeah, it shows you the office in the mobile view. Right. So if I just go back to the dashboard again, so that's what we can do with the dashboard. We can add different types of cards from simple to heavily customizable cards. Now, how did we create these customized cards? Like I said earlier, if you have worked on SharePoint framework, your web parts or extensions before, it's the same thing. So we just have to create a new SharePoint framework project, and then when we create a new SharePoint framework project, one of the options we get is do you want to create an ACE? And then you say yes to that, and then the steps are quite straightforward. So what I'll do quickly is I'll just show you the code of the TFL card that we developed. Again, this is all open source. It is all available on GitHub. I'll be pasting the links to that towards the end of the presentation. So as you can see over here, the structure. I won't go deep into it, but the structure, it is all similar. So we've got the ACE folder, and then we've got certain card views, and then there's a quick view, which is a lines view, and then all the other code, which looks very much similar to a SharePoint framework web part. What I have also done is in the resources section, I've included a link which shows how to get started on creating these ACEs. So like I said, it's if you worked with SharePoint framework before, the experience is pretty much the same. You create an ACE and then start adding customizations to it, which is very straightforward. Okay, so now that we've taken a look at the ACEs, what we'll do is we'll quickly do a recap of Viva Connection ACEs and what we looked at today. So firstly, Viva Connections is made up of 3 elements. We've got the dashboard, wherein we can add all the different cards that we saw earlier. And then we've got the feed, which is a personalized feed and shows the content from the organization, like news or Yammer posts or videos from Microsoft Stream. And then finally, the resources, which is the SharePoint app bar and the global navigation. And then we saw how the experience of Viva Connections is in desktop versus mobile. So all the elements of Viva Connections are present in both the apps. It's just that in desktop, we can decide, or we have control on where to place the dashboard and where to place the feed. Whereas in mobile, it will be available, Viva Connections will be available as 3 tabs, one for dashboard, one for feed, and one for resources. And then what we did was we went ahead to the dashboard page within the SharePoint home site. And then we saw how to create the dashboard and how to edit it. And then as part of editing the dashboard, what we did was we added some out-of-the-box cards that are provided by Microsoft. We added a customizable card, which is again provided by Microsoft. We added some data in that. And then we saw how we can extend these adaptive cards by writing our own code, in which we looked at two cards. One was the TFL card, which called the TFL API and then showed the status of the various tube lines in London. And the second one was on the office locations card, which showed the the different offices within our organization. So those customizations are driven by user requirements, and we can add more customizations as and how needed. Right. Now, these are the various resources which I have been talking about from the beginning of the presentation. So there is a link to how to set up the Viva connections within your tenant. And then there is another video which explains the different samples that I showed to you earlier, where we edited the adaptive card designer and added some data and template into it. The second link has a video created by Vesa Yunan, which shows how to create those cards. And then the third one is a link to the different templates that can be used out of the box and then used within the card designer. And finally, the last link is the GitHub link, which is the the ACEs that have been created by the community members of the patterns and practice community. So there we can see several ACEs that are contributed by various community members, and then that you should keep an eye on that repository because more and more ACEs are getting added in that. So yeah, if you do go ahead and create some of the custom ACEs, and if you are okay, then please go ahead and share those ACEs in the PNP repository. And yeah, that's it from my side, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, great session, Anoop. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
So there's a lot to unpack, isn't it? Because you have to go through the Viva in general, which is a huge kind of area to cover off the modules and unpack the demos. I think that's a really good session. I really enjoyed that. I think to walk through some of the codes. And I think Nikki's got a hand, so we'll go straight over to Nikki.
Oh, hi. Thanks. That was a really good session and really timely for me because one of my clients was asking me about using Viva connections and how to engage really with frontline workers. So this is like perfect, isn't it? When you've got a frontline worker, somebody that's in a manufacturing environment, they'll be able to access it and get key information direct from their mobile phone. Now, there was one question that I was asked is, can we push this type of content to like wall boards, display boards, say in a work canteen to kind of summarize some of the core items, or is it dependent on having kind of an end user in Teams?
Right. So the dashboard, if we have the dashboard, say on the in the home site, so we can create a page within the home site, and then that home page maybe that page will just have the dashboard web part, and then we can show all the cards over there, and maybe that page gets shown to the users. Or the other option is, in the Teams app, when we install the Viva Connections app within the Teams app, then you can see the dashboard directly, like I showed to you in the demos. This dashboard needs to be authored by someone, and they can decide what cards need to appear over here.
I guess you could use the SharePoint homepage, isn't it? So if this is like a typical intranet type environment, and if that homepage or even a dedicated page for that matter in that home site, you could probably put this one massive adaptive card extension, right, as a widget on that one page to display what Nikki is saying there, isn't it? I guess because I'm not sure with Teams one. It depends how you tailor it, but I guess
Yes, you do it natively really through the SharePoint side as you would a normal SharePoint page. Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure whether there was anything extra I should be thinking about in Viva Connections, or whether just focus on getting the content. It's in SharePoint. They can then put it up in their restaurant and publish information to people that aren't those information workers. They're not sat at their desks all the time on the computers with easy access.
Absolutely. SharePoint rocks.
Yeah. So Microsoft provides this dashboard web part, which can be added to any page within the home site. And you can display that particular page with the dashboard web part, wherever needed. Yeah.
Good. I had a couple of questions, actually, if I may. I think just while, if anybody, and please, attendees, feel free to just unmute and ask a question. But yeah, I just wanted to find out the effort that takes. So, taking that example of the office locations, or the TFL one, do you know roughly, I mean, given that I'm not really a developer myself, but I know there are a lot of examples there in the GitHub repository that you reference.
Yeah.
What kind of effort are we looking at in terms of to build something like that and put it on the page?
Yeah. So once we have the requirements, and it is so if you are familiar with developing SPFX solutions, be it web parts or extensions, the development experience for ACES is pretty much the same. And then depending upon the complexity, it might be like 1 or 2 days in order to develop an ACE, or it might be slightly longer based on what all customizations you need. So, for example, this Office one, it uses the weather API. Now, it is provided by Bing, so all we had to do was just call the Bing API and get the weather. Get the map, and then the weather is from another API called as Open Weather or Open Maps, I think. Yeah. All we have to do is just call the API and display those. So more effort will be driven towards what is needed in the card, and then how to get that data. But like I said, if you are familiar with SharePoint framework development, then if we are looking at similar effort.
It's just the reason why I ask is because I come across many organizations, especially in the IT pros, right? Because this looks almost one of the first things you can probably get to potentially develop those adaptive card extensions.
Yeah.
Before you actually jump into developing the SharePoint web parts, right? Because to me, this seems a bit probably less complex than the actual web part you would write. Obviously, web part has a different space in terms of to meet that solution. But would I be right in saying that in terms of getting that first hand on development from an IT pro, somebody who's doing PowerShell scripting, the JSON scripting for conditional formatting and lists and so forth?
Yeah.
Do you think they can pick it up pretty much quickly?
Yeah, that's right. Because what's happening here is, as you can see, most of the UI. So, for example, the UI of these cards, there's no need to do anything or develop anything for that. Microsoft already has given us that UI. We can so there's no need to write extra code for that. And even the the quick view, this area of the quick view can be customized with some with some JSON and a little bit of code. So yes, in that way. Because the UI element is taken care by Microsoft, all we have to do is concentrate on the logic and how we get all the data from various places. Whereas in a custom web part, you would you would need to spend some time for the UI as well.
Based on the requirement. Yeah. Sure. No, that's good. That really helps. No, thanks for that. So. Good. So any questions from anybody, and not just for Anoop's session, even if you had some afterthoughts from Nikki's session earlier on, then please feel free to ask, or for that matter, any question really for any topics around M365. But I've put the link in the chat anyways for link to the feedback, and again, as just like for Nikki as well, it would really help if you can just fill out and just give your thoughts and suggestions on that, so at least Anoop can then improve. Perhaps maybe we'll come with another example of adaptive card extension, so feel free to put your ideas in the feedback. So that will really help you. You may have noticed also I've put other links, as I mentioned in the beginning. For some of us, next week will be Nikki will be there, myself will be there at the Collab Days, Bletchley Park, something that's kind of close to our home ground here in UK. So looking forward to a lot of the folks at the Bletchley Park next week. So hopefully you can make it. But also our next event is on the 16th of March. And so, hopefully you can join us for the M365 UK for that, covering sessions on PNP, PowerShell, as well as the Power Query in Power BI from Gautam Sheth from India and Pragati Jain from here in UK, both MVPs. So looking forward to those wonderful sessions. And slides, videos will be available this Friday. But I think other than that, all I would say is kind of, have a good evening and take care. And until next time, be safe. Thanks.